Okay. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission this Monday, January 25th, 2020. And we will still rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A clerk, has the roll been taken?
It has, and as we're required to do, we're going to have to do roll call attendance and have each commissioner give us the city, county, and state where they're currently located. And it's worth noting that City Attorney Mike Hormier is expected to join our meeting late tonight. So with that, Commissioner Tolis.
The City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County.
Commissioner Ronan.
I got to get better at that. It's been years now, it seems. City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, the state of Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillis.
Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
Commissioner Simon.
State of Michigan, Isabella County, City of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Commissioner Alsager.
City of Mount Pleasant, County Isabella, State Michigan.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
The City of Mount Pleasant, the County of Isabella, and the State of Michigan.
Thank you. And Mayor Joseph.
City of Mount Pleasant, County Isabella, State of Michigan.
All are present and accounted for.
Thank you, Mr. Saladin. Next on our agenda, we have first an introduction of Street Maintenance Specialist Kyle Keeball, which is from our carryover from our last meeting. And I believe there is a video prepared.
I am pleased to introduce Kyle Keeball as our new street maintenance specialist. Kyle worked for Mears for many years and most recently for Advanced Farm Equipment. Please join me in welcoming Kyle and wishing him success.
Mayor, can I? Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Nick from Mac TV, can you make me a co-host of the meeting, please, so I can help manage the public comment a little bit when we get to it? I haven't been made it. There we go. Thank you. Sorry, Mayor.
No problem at all. I just wanted to say we welcome Kyle to the City of Mount Pleasant, and thank you for his service to the city. Next, we have a proclamation in support of peacemaking, which is an annual proclamation that we make every year. This year is a little bit different, given the different conditions that the school district is in. And instead of recognizing peacemaking as a singular day, peacemaking this year will be, February will be recognized as Peacemaking Month. And so I will read the proclamation as the mayor of the City of Mount Pleasant.
And Mayor, I would just indicate Jennifer Verliger, the superintendent of Mount Pleasant Schools, is with us today, and I just promoted her into the panelist group, so she is there if she wants to make any comments when you're done.
Thank you, Manager Ridley, and welcome, very welcome to be with us, Superintendent Verliger.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening.
Whereas, peacemaking is an action, activity, event, or way of life which reduces or leads to a reduction of violence and contributes to a more cooperative and just way in which we live together. And whereas, peacemaking is a lifelong process that begins with ourselves. And whereas, we live in a time when violence, hatred, and crime dominate the public media, and these attitudes are pervasive in our children's worldview through television, movies, toys, popular music, videos, and video games. And whereas we would all prefer to live in peace in our physical and social environments in a way which honors and respects others and their differences as well as ourselves. And whereas our youth have an inherent idealism to make this a better community, country, and world in which to live. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim February 2021 Peacemaking Recognition Month in Mount Pleasant and affirm that the peacemaking efforts of its youth are valued and appreciated, and that these efforts contribute significantly to the quality of life in Mount Pleasant. And further, the City Commission supports the nonviolent resolution of misunderstandings and conflicts whenever and however they occur, as demonstrated by the life of Martin Luther King Jr. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and the great seal of the City of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, this 25th day of January, 2021.
Thank you very much, Mayor Joseph. If I can just share with the commissioners briefly, we did kick off our peacemaking campaign last Monday in conjunction with Martin Luther King Day. And as you mentioned earlier, it is a little bit different for us this year. We will be honoring our students throughout the month of February via videos that we'll release as a district so that we're still able to recognize and honor all of our students. So we appreciate this partnership, and we appreciate you taking the time this evening to recognize how important peacemaking is in our schools and in our community.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Verliger, and we really look forward to seeing those videos. I've always appreciated the peacemaking ceremony, and we'll miss it this year, but we do our best.
And we're planning for 2022 already.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Next on our agenda, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Commissioner Tolis.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to add to our tonight's agenda discussion on the Facebook post and a report from the city manager on the status of this situation.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Gillis?
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'll open up the floor for discussion. Commissioner Tolis?
Oh, I had that up from before.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start since no one,
Sorry.
That's all right. Commissioner Gillis, you have your hand up and go ahead.
In light of the community members that have reached out to us and the community impact, I think it only prudent that we add this to our agenda so that any commissioners that would like some conversation along with the lawyer that we have present, we'll hopefully have present this evening. I think it would be prudent to add this to the agenda so we can air this out.
I would like to remind the commission that there has been some legal questions asked by the commission to Mike Homier, the city attorney, regarding these issues. And when Mike gets back, he may be able to answer some of our questions. I know, however, that he has communicated earlier today that he is not complete in his research. And so if this does not become an agenda item, I think it will be prudent to either discuss this at a future meeting at some time. So either that be a special meeting or a next meeting. But without that legal opinion from Mike Homier, it is maybe difficult to properly move forward. Commissioner Ronan.
Just a point of clarification. So anytime I want a legal opinion for the city to find, I can just ask Mike to do it and it automatically happens. Is that right? The commission doesn't have to approve the expenditure?
I would refer that question to city manager.
Typically, the way we've handled the requests for review from the city attorney is those go through the city manager so that we can control the costs of that. And the way I've handled it previously is if I thought it was a situation that either came up by the commission or from the staff or from the public, that I felt the commission would need additional legal review of it before they could have a proper discussion, I have gone ahead and requested that information from the city attorney. There have been some times where an individual commissioner has brought me an issue that I wasn't sure that the commission as a whole was interested in. And there have been those situations where I brought it back to the commission and said, as a group, are you sure you are interested in this information before I incur the expense? In this situation, the first question that came up had to do with an interpretation of the City Commission's ethics policy. And the ethics policy is very clear that the city attorney gets involved in those interpretations of that policy. So I immediately referred it to him to get me out of the middle of it. So I guess that's a long way, Commissioner Ronan, of saying, no, not any city commissioner can ask for anything. It typically goes through the city manager. And then I use my discretion in determining which ones I think this city attorney should spend his time on before bringing it back to the full commission. And in this case, I did refer some of the research on to him and ask him for it.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that the approval of that expense, is that budgeted already, or how does the cost of that work? How does that?
We pay City Attorney Homier on an hourly basis, and there's an amount in the budget that typically covers the average amount we spend every year. And if it appears that we're running low on it, then we ask for an amendment to the budget.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tullis.
I just want to make another quick comment. I asked Manager Ridley for the ethics and the oath of office and the rest of the charter information. And then upon review of that, I had questions that I asked Manager Ridley on that, which she felt that she had to contact Mike Homier to get an opinion on that. But I think we should move forward with this because I think we have to have some kind of transparency here to show the citizens that made comments on this, what we're doing. Thank you.
I would add that I also inquired about some of these questions to better inform the commission on the issue at hand and also the options that the commission has at its disposal. I think in all cases, it is better to be informed than not. So.
Yeah, just.
Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, I just like to express my concern that it seems like lots of commissioners were doing different things, yet the overall commission wasn't aware of this. So I think I'd like to indicate some displeasure with lots of commissioners sort of getting together and discussing these things without allowing the entire commission the option of sort of being privy to those conversations. I just view it as a way of handling things in a transparent way, but perhaps I'm wrong. I'm just voicing my displeasure. I do agree that let's talk about it and let's get going forward. But I agree.
I guess if I could just point out something in that regard, Mayor, the only way the commission as a group could get together to discuss this issue would have been to schedule a special meeting, because it's not possible for you to get together outside of a public meeting to do that. And the actual request to Attorney Homier for his ethics interpretation was late Thursday when that went to him. I finally spoke to him on Friday about the research that he may need to do. And I believe I communicated that to the full commission on Saturday that he was working on that.
Commissioner Gillis?
Yes, I do feel that this should be addressed this evening, being that we have had so much outreach from community members and emails, and has been a whirlwind of news bites on the city of Mount Pleasant. I think it would be a derelict of duty not to at least have commissioners that would like to address the issue, and hopefully they will, to our community members that have asked us some clarification on where we stand. And I think it might clear up, well, hopefully it might clear up some misinformation, or make it clear to community members that we hear their voices. So I don't think there's anything wrong with adding this to the agenda. I think it is appropriate measure, being that what we have been through this past week. So I would hope everyone would consider adding this to the agenda. And just to Commissioner Ronan's point, I am going on my 6th year on the commission. Several times I have been left out of the loop while commissioners discussed all sorts of agenda items and all sorts of issues. It comes into effect when there's 4 of us discussing it, because that is illegal. That would be considered a quorum. But in my experience, many commissioners have sought out other commissioners to discuss things that were happening that concerned the city commission and our community. And, I'm sure Commissioner Ronan and Vice Mayor Perchbacher, you guys work out of the same building. So I'm sure there are times that you have discussed city commission agenda items or city commission issues, being that you work together every day, Monday through Friday. So I think that's kind of ingenuous to accuse other commissioners of maybe speaking together to try to find some solution when I know that happens. So thank you.
Commissioner Toles?
I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand from before.
That's okay. I think without anybody's hand up, obviously this needs 5 votes to get on the agenda. And so at this point, I guess we can go to a roll call vote on whether or not to put this on tonight's agenda.
Okay. Commissioner Elsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perchbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. Right. So that will be item number 21 tonight, I'm assuming. All right. Any other additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Okay, without any other hands, I will now open the public input on agenda items. We have a more than average number of people in our meeting tonight, and because of that, we're going to be pretty strict with the 5-minute allocation of time per speaker. The Manager Ridley has a time card that she will raise when your time is coming to a close, especially the 1 minute remaining, and then there's another one for when your time is out, and at that time, you're being asked to wrap up your comments, and if you go too long, unfortunately, we will have to cut you off. Also, when you're recognized, you need to state your name and your address. And if you're joining us by Zoom, to be recognized by me, the chair, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there should be a participants button. It should be next to the green share screen. If you click on that, there will be a menu panel on the right-hand side, and a bunch of names should come up with the people that are in the meeting. And then at the very bottom, there should be a button that says raise hand. And if you raise your hand, you'll be able to be recognized. If you're joining us by phone, you can hit *9 on your telephone, and that will do the raise hand as well. So. Right. We have Kathy Ling recognized for public comment.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are.
Hooray, it worked. It's the first time I've ever joined a meeting by doing that. My name is Kathy Ling, and I live at 914 South Crapo. It's nice to see all of you and to have the opportunity to say congratulations to the newest commissioner, Commissioner Simon. In order to make sure I stay within my time limit, I'm going to read my comments. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. In reviewing the agenda for tonight's meeting, I noted the receipt of 6 letters from individuals upset about an item posted on Facebook by Vice Mayor Amy Burschbacher on her personal Facebook page. Several of the letters insisted that the Vice Mayor should be forced to resign or should be removed by the commission. I do not believe that Vice Mayor Burschbacher should resign, and I do not believe there's any basis for her removal. The Vice Mayor has openly acknowledged and apologized for putting up a post that some have seen as an attack on law enforcement. See both the Morning Sun and CM Life, among other publications. The image that was posted was a picture of a flag that has been identified as the Thin Blue Line flag and is intended to honor law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line every day to protect others. However, this particular image had the blue stripe peeled back to reveal part of a Nazi symbol. The question that has been raised during this controversy is, what was the message of this picture, and was it an attack on local law enforcement? In her explanation to the media after removing the post, the Vice Mayor clearly says that she respects anyone that is willing to make that career choice, as it comes with levels of danger that most of us are not willing to take on. She explains that she felt that the image was referring to the attempted coup where individuals carrying flags of blue lines, Confederate and Nazi symbols attacked our national capital and law enforcement, killing one officer. In her view, the image was expressing outrage at those extremist groups, not at law enforcement officers. Others have made the same point about the dishonoring of this flag by extremist groups. For example, Jack Glasser, who teaches courses on public policy, recently pointed out that the violence on the part of the rioters, of the insurrectionists, in the name of the Thin Blue Line, some of them carrying the modified American flag with the blue line, I think that was an offense to policing professionals. Unfortunately, with no explanation with the image except reading beneath the line, it is easy to understand why some people looked at the image and assumed it was labeling law enforcement officers as Nazis, and those people were understandably deeply offended. All of us have seen examples of images that are interpreted differently by different people. Perhaps one of the most notorious recent examples involves the social media debate over whether or not a certain dress that was posted was white and gold or blue and black. People who saw it as white and gold were astounded that anyone would claim that it was blue and black, and vice versa. The image people were viewing was exactly the same dress, but scientists explained that for a number of reasons, different people processed the image differently. I want to use my time up, my new page. I believe that is what happened in this situation. Many people looked at the same image, but drew vastly different conclusions about what it meant. In the polarized political world in which we are living, it is all too easy to jump to the worst conclusions about the motives of people who see something differently than we do. The Vice Mayor has admitted that her emotions caused her to post an image without thinking about what it might look like to others. She removed the post, tried to explain what she meant, and apologized for her careless action. I believe that those calling for her resignation have also reacted emotionally and jumped to a premature conclusion about what her intentions were. I don't think the commission needs to take any action. The vice mayor is up for re-election this year, and if the voters disagree with her actions, they will have the ability to remove her from office. That is how the process should work. Meanwhile, all of us can learn from this situation and make an effort to be more sensitive to the fact that people looking at the same images and events can draw different conclusions about what those events or images mean. Honest and frank communication about the problems facing our community needs to be part of that process. A willingness to work together to deal with the problems facing not only Mount Pleasant, but the state and the nation as we live through one of the most difficult times in recent history is also essential. Alexis de Tocqueville, who wrote Democracy in America in the mid-1800s, observed that the unique willingness of Americans to work with others to make a better community was what made American democracy possible. Our democracy is being challenged in unique ways. It is up to all of us to make sure that our democracy survives by continuing to work together for the good of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ling. Unfortunately, your time has expired, but we appreciate you being here today with us and appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
In the attendees, I don't see any hands up at this time. Manager Ridley, did we have any emailed comments on agenda items this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we did. We had two that were submitted. One was from Kathy Ling, who submitted it in the event that she had technical issues. So obviously I won't read that one since she did it. But a second one was submitted from a Mr. William Donovan. And he indicates, my name is William Donovan of 1434 Orchard Lane in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Recently, a police officer was slain on Capitol Hill while defending our democracy against an insurrection aimed at preventing the peaceful transition of power. I was saddened to learn that the vice mayor of Mount Pleasant compared the slain officer that died while defending the ideals of democracy to the that died while defending the ideals of democracy to the Nazi Party of Germany. It would be better for the morale of our community if the city commission would select a different person to hold the post of vice mayor. Perhaps a person that is more in tune with the ideals of democracy would be appropriate. So that was the only ones that were submitted through our electronic system. We did receive additional communications that I typically would report under receipt of petitions and communications. So I will hold on to those for that section, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. I'm sorry, I was muted myself. I see that we have Maureen Eke with us in the attendees, and so I recognize her for public comment.
Good evening, everyone. I am Maureen Eke, and I am here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'm a professor in the Department of English at CMU. I have been the chair of the Isabella County Human Rights Committee. I gave up that position on last Monday. I'm responding to this because I have been concerned after reading the enormous messages on your website. I am concerned. I realize that people are upset, and clearly so. They do have the right to be upset. But I also went back and looked at the posting from the vice mayor and realized that, yes, she was trying to communicate a particular message. The problem, of course, is interpretation. And as Kathy Ling has pointed out, that various people interpreted that message differently from what she intended the message to communicate. Perhaps she needed to add more content to what she was saying, bearing that, a lot of people will see it differently. from where I stand, I'm looking at that thinking, well, the vice mayor would not possibly be calling all law enforcement officers or police neo-Nazis or fascists. But that doesn't mean that the point that she was trying to make, that there were law enforcement officers or people associated with security and law enforcement who were also part of this insurrection or coup or failed coup. Where I come from, it is called a failed coup. Whether you want to accept it or not, it is a failed coup in which the very people who are supposed to carry, who profess and commit to protect that particular flag, used it to kill one of their own. Okay, I understand that everybody is upset. The issue really that I'm asking is that we pay attention to the extent to which this has exposed a lot of cracks within the community itself. People are upset because it has to do with law enforcement. Take the vice mayor out of the equation. If somebody else had posted that and pointed out to say, hey, there were law enforcement people who were involved in this insurrection, which killed one of their own, clobbered another one, would we be this upset? What is it about that particular posting that is upsetting us? She posted it on her own, on her personal Facebook. Somebody took it and interpreted it as the city's position, but clearly she didn't say it's the city's position. So I do think that it's important for us to make these distinctions. She did not say it's the city's position. She says it is her position. Now that it's been brought, before the city and the city has taken a position regarding it, I would think that this is a very good moment. It provides an incredible opportunity for the city, the whole city, to host a citywide conversation on these issues, because what it is exposing for me is the ways in which the police are seen. And I realize that the police have gone through fire of, a lot of scrutiny within the past two summers. And given that that's the case, I think that this provides us with an incredible opportunity to give the police, law enforcement in the city, opportunity to come, to this town hall where all of us are going to be present to talk about what they do in terms of policing. 1 minute left. I'm almost done. I am proposing that for you, that it is an important opportunity to have a conversation about this issue. Host one. Let the police come out and talk about it. Let people in the community come out and talk about how they're feeling, why they're feeling, this way. It might also give the vice mayor opportunity to talk about why and what she wanted to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Next, I will recognize Darian Bird for public comment.
Hello to the mayor, vice mayor, to the commission, to everybody here. Hello, my name is Darian Bird. I currently reside at 1510 East Gaylord Street, right here in Mount Pleasant. I've been perplexed about the situation that's been going on, wondering how to respond to it, if I should respond to it in any certain way. And I think the fact of the matter is that we have to understand what the post regarded. The three that spoke before me, gave their input and had similar things to say. I'm sorry, two of them did. Me being a recent graduate of CMU in my political science degree, I stay locked into the news at all times. And so with that being said, when Vice Mayor Amy posted that, I automatically knew that that was in response to the insurrection that happened on the nation's capital on the 6th of January. I also understand that it can be a little extreme. I did get off the phone literally maybe a half hour ago with Chief Loria of the Mount Pleasant PD, wondering, just, what he thought about it. And he did open up my eyes some, and stating that it was extreme to, being that it was out of context because there was nothing else that said that it was towards the insurrection. It can be seen as very extreme because you are saying that the thin blue line, which, is law enforcement, is comparable to Nazis. And because of that, that allowed, I'm sure people heard in the news where the guy went up to the police station and began recording and antagonizing the police, where that's not the message that was supposed to give off. That her Facebook message was not supposed to be a message of hate. And it has turned into that in the comments. I think it is unacceptable that she is getting, whether she's getting spammed in her inboxes or all on her personal Facebook page. I think the community has to do better. And one way that I think that we can do better is forgiveness, right? So Vice Mayor Amy did apologize in what she said. And she said, she got, she let her personal feelings get ahead of her with that. But I think the problem is that we aren't forgiving. We aren't accepting the apology, because if she didn't apologize, that would be the next thing on our agenda today, is that she did not apologize. So calling for her resignation, as well as the resignation of City Commissioner Olivia, I think it's a bit far-fetched, because let's say you let them go. Well, then what? The situation had already, it happened. And so City Commissioner Olivia is new to this. She's new to her position. She wants to let the city grow. And Vice Mayor Amy has been with the city commission for a couple of years now. And I'm sure that she has done work to help advance the city in more ways than one. So to allow something like this to get in the way of that, I think is, as the other people said before, is letting our emotions getting the best of us here. And I do stand with them both. I understand that what was said was out of context. I do understand that, but I do believe that there was meaning, and people weren't allowing her to explain herself, which is how this has gotten all out of hand. So I think that we do also need to have a conversation about how we can move forward with this, and know that we know that law enforcement is not all bad, because if you don't recognize the name, not that I'm anybody important, but I did one of the protests over the summer or in the fall, and I use law enforcement. And I think it hurts when people tell me what all Black Lives Matter are, they are crazy, they loot and all that. I understand that that comparison is not fair, but I also think that we need to listen and accept the apology. And as Mayor Williams said, that this is February's peacemaking month. Well, let's get a head start, and let's call for peace on the situation, and let's accept the apologies that Vice Mayor had given, and that their resignations of both Olivia and Vice Mayor Amy are not needed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. All right, I don't see any other hands up in our attendees, and so at this time I will close the public comment section on agenda items, and we will move on to receipt of petitions and communications. Manager Ridley.
Under this section of the agenda, we have the pending report, our monthly pending report, and we also have the annual report we provide to the City Commission on vehicle, bicycle, and vehicle pedestrian accidents for the last 5 years. We have the fourth quarter investment report. We have the minutes of the July Economic Development Corporation, the December Planning Commission, and we also have the Planning Commission's 2020 annual report. And later in this meeting, I'll be suggesting to you that we schedule the joint meeting with the Planning Commission to discuss that report. The other item under petitions and communications is the resignation of Glenn Irwin from the Airport Advisory Board. And then in your packet, there were 6 pieces of correspondence that were received regarding the social media post, and those items were included in your agenda packet. But so that the public knows, they were received from Amber Matisse, who did not provide us an address. From Kristen Mole, again, no address. Mike LaFave with no address. Adam Solomon with no address. And Nancy McGurk, whose office address is 600 South University. And then Jordan Hall. And as I mentioned earlier in the agenda, once the packet was prepared, we received 6 additional communications that came in that were either addressed to the City Commission, or I was asked to share them with the City Commission. So our practice has been that in these virtual meetings that I read them to you verbally. And so the first one is a follow-up communication from Nancy McGurk of 600 South University. And this is after she had sent her first one. Her second communication says, "Hello, thank you. Since I sent that first communication, I have since discovered that one of the new commissioners, Olivia, liked that post. She needs to be removed as well. This cannot be swept under the rug, Nancy." And I have to tell you, these are hard for me to read because these aren't my words, but I'm reading them as they were written, just so you know. The second communication was Emma Fuller, whose work address is 402 North Mission Street. And Ms. Fuller wrote, "I am writing in regards to the recent post from Amy Perschbacher. As a Mount Pleasant citizen and business owner, I encourage the removal of Amy and City Commissioner Olivia Simon. Amy's post was interpreted by the citizens of Mount Pleasant, as well as myself, as derogatory towards our law enforcement officers. I am basing this on my feelings and from the comments on the City of Mount Pleasant's Facebook page, as it has almost 600 comments, with the vast majority interpreting it as derogatory. Although Olivia Simon did not post the comment, she showed her support of the derogatory interpretation by liking Amy's post. A city commissioner should be unbiased, and this is presently clear that this is not the case with 2 of our city's commissioners, Amy and Olivia. It is hoped for all involved that Amy and Olivia would turn in a resignation effective immediately." The third communication, again, came from Nancy McGurk at 600 South University. And this communication from Ms. McGurk says, "Hello, it has been brought to my attention that you will vote to retain Amy if it comes to a vote on Monday. I certainly hope that they both resign before that on their own. I'm very disappointed in your decision. Your attitude to be forgiving is a good trait in most cases, but not in this case when you represent the citizens of Mount Pleasant. If you want to do that personally or for situations in your personal life, so be it, but not when you represent the citizens of Mount Pleasant. You need to rethink your vote to keep her on the commission. Olivia needs to go too because she liked it as well. They both need to do the right thing and resign without it coming to a vote, but I doubt they will do that. Sad times we are in with people like this." And I should have pointed out on that communication, it was sent to one commissioner as well as myself, and she asked that I share it with the full commission. The next communication that was received is from Mr. Bruce Kilmer. And Mr. Kilmer says, "City Commission, it's obvious the people carrying the blue line flag in the Washington, D.C. attack on the Capitol were hypocrites, claiming police support while they were violently breaking the law. Amy was not referring to the police in general, but the hypocrites who claim to support the police." The next communication was from Cynthia Kilmer, and hers was addressed to the mayor and also to me, asking me to share it. And she says, "Dear William, I think we can probably all agree that people have gotten a bit carried away with political slams on social media. It seems from all sides and all points of views. It comes from all sides and all points of view. Sometimes people get carried away with the emotional impact of national events and hit the share button without first thinking out how others will likely interpret the post. I understand this happened recently with the city commissioner. I suspect it has happened to all of us, but who wants to spend the time scrolling through people's posts in a game of gotcha? Certainly, or not me. The City Commission is nonpartisan. It should not wallow in the mud of private political social media posts. There are enough things to argue and debate on a local level without going into the concerns of national politics. I understand the post was offensive to some, but an explanation and apology was already given. It is now a tempest in a teapot. Please just let it rest and spend your time and energy on the issues your citizens need you to attend to, the local things. The voters will take care of the politics in the fall. And the last communication I have for you is from a gentleman from Illinois who called one of our staff members Saturday morning, and she's working remotely, so her desk phone forwarded to her home, and she answered the phone, and he shared his concerns and asked her if she would write them down and share them with the City Commission. So she sent me an email today with his comments. And what he said was, his name is Mr. Neil Orris, and he's a first responder from Rockton, Illinois. He called regarding a string of posts he was reading related to a posting on Vice Mayor Amy Perschbacher's Facebook page. It included a United States flag with the thin blue line, which represents police officers, pulled back to reveal a Nazi swastika. Mr. Orris was very disturbed to see a person who calls herself a leader in a community to make the choice to post such a disgusting image. As a first responder, he has never killed anyone. He feels her representation is out of line. Over 6 million people died under the Nazi regime during the Holocaust. The statement that police today are similar to that cruel, violent, and horrific act is unbelievable. Mr. Orris would like Vice Mayor Perschbacher to make a statement and explain why she would make such a disappointing choice. The post was disgusting and horrifying to him. He wants Vice Mayor Perschbacher to know that people are not okay with her choice to make such a hateful post and do not support her divisive and damaging portrayal of first responders. He asked if there were public meetings, and he was instructed to the city's webpage and the YouTube channel, and there is a chance he will be watching Monday night, but he asked in the event that he could not, that this be read into the record. And that completes the receipt of petitions and communications for this evening.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Those are items with asterisks next to them in the agenda. Are there any items that the commission would like to remove from the consent calendar tonight? Commissioner Gillis?
Item number 18, please.
Okay. Note that item number 18, which is the considered to the appointment of the city representative and the MMDC representative to the Airport Joint Operations Board, has been removed from the consent calendar. Commissioner Elsager?
Thank you. I'm wondering if it might be appropriate to put number 14 on the consent agenda.
Are there any objections to putting item number 14 on the consent calendar? That is the to consider the confirmation of the sale of property as recommended by the Economic Development Corporation. Commissioner Ronan?
Does that need a second or something? I just don't know.
I'm just looking for a simple objection or not.
No, I'm not objecting. I'm
okay.
The opposite of that.
If there is no objection, then we can put that on the consent calendar, I believe.
I object.
Okay.
I just want the public to know what the EDC, when they're selling pieces of property that are owned by Mount Pleasant, that I would just rather have a statement from Ms. Ridley, please.
I think that's noted and fair. Any other items that need to be removed from the consent calendar tonight or added? All right, I'm seeing no hands, so that leaves us with number 18 removed from the consent calendar, and item number 14 continues to stay off of that consent calendar. So Manager Ridley, if you would.
So the items that I believe are remaining on the consent calendar include the approval of the minutes of your regular meeting of January 11th and the closed session. There are two bids before you this evening. One is for a fire administrative vehicle, and this replacement vehicle was part of your approved operating budget. When we sent it out for bid, one bid was received based on the specs, and we're recommending the purchase of the vehicle from Crapo Ford for $35,431. And although this exceeds the budgeted amount of $30,000, we believe there's adequate funds within the existing fire budget to cover that overage. The second bid is for the public safety facade improvement. And you will recall that last year we sent bids out for the improvements to the facade around the public safety building. And we split it into 3 different phases. And the award last year was to do 2 of the phases, and we plan to do the largest phase in 2021. And the commission approved the award, and the work was done for the other 2 phases last year, and it was done well. The contractor who was awarded those 2 phases indicated that he would agree to hold his pricing from the original bid to do the last phase in 2021. And he was the low bidder of that bid process, and he's willing to hold that bid price to this year. And adequate funds were allocated in the capital improvement fund for this project. So we're recommending authorization for the mayor to sign the contract with Cusack Masonry for $112,000 for the final phase of that facade improvement. The next item on the consent calendar is to consider a budget amendment for the renovation of a conference room in the lower level of the Borden building. You'll recall that last year funds were allocated to renovate that lower level conference room in the hopes of providing more space to be able to provide for the less formal public work sessions of boards and commissions to be held in that room once we're back to face-to-face meetings again. The project was delayed a number of times last year due to the pandemic. And originally the contractor thought that the work would be completed before the end of 2020. So as we did our final amended budget, we did not request a carryover of the funds into this year. But the project ended up getting delayed again, and it was not completed last year. But he has indicated that he can complete it in February. So we're recommending the reallocation of the $8,000 in this year's budget from the fund balance to complete that project. The next item on the consent calendar is to ask you to consider authorizing the finance director to sign the agreement with the municipal employees retirement system. And what this agreement would do is it merely documents all of the standard practices we have in place and all of the provisions of our main retirement plan to the non-police and fire employees, so that MERS, who administers the plan, is sure that everything is fully documented and that they are administering the plan appropriately. So we've been working with them on getting that document completed. And just recently, they told us that they are now requiring local governing boards to provide specific authorization for the finance director to sign that agreement. As I indicated in the memo, this does not change anything in our existing retirement plans. It merely documents the administrative practices and or what's in the union contracts. So we're recommending you authorize the finance director to sign it. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we're recommending that we go ahead and have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission this year. Last year, we kept holding off on having the joint meeting in the hopes that we would be back in face-to-face meetings. And obviously with the pandemic, that did not happen. And it's typically been our practice to have the Planning Commission and City Commission meet at least once per year. We didn't want to continue to hold off on having that meeting since we never had one last year. So we're recommending that we go ahead and schedule it, recognizing it will probably be a virtual meeting, but we're recommending the date of Thursday, March 6th at 6 o'clock for the date of that joint meeting. And that is one of the regular meeting dates of the Planning Commission that they would hold in March. And then lastly, we're recommending the approval of the payrolls and warrants.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Tolis
We'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
and Commissioner Alsager.
I will second that, but I think we need to have one correction. The meeting with the Planning Commission on our note says March 4th instead of March 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's March 4th at 6 o'clock. Thank
Okay.
you.
In that case, I second it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Alsager. Pete, I still see your hand up. Did you have a comment?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
That's fine. All right. I don't see any other hands up, so I think we can go to a roll call vote to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Okay. Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Okay. Next on our agenda is item number 14, which is to consider the confirmation of sale of property as recommended by the Economic Development Corporation. And I'll hand it over to Manager Ridley to give an overview.
The Economic Development Corporation recently met and considered an offer to purchase land for a parcel of land that is owned by the EDC in our Industrial Park North. And the offer was from a Mr. Mitchell Wagner. And what he was interested in doing was buying a portion of the parcel of land that is owned there, because that parcel includes a detention pond that is maintained by the city, but yet there is some developable, some land that could be developed, that's a better way to say it, on part of the parcel. So the entire parcel is just under 9 acres. And his offer was to split the parcel and purchase up to 3 acres of it. And he offered a price of $14,500 per acre to be applied to whatever the actual acreage is once the survey is done to split the parcel. But he knows he wants no more than 3 acres. The price that he offered is within the price range of what the city assessor independently had valued the land at on a per acre amount. And the EDC unanimously recommended the sale of the land at $14,500 per acre. And as you're aware of, with all land sales owned by the Economic Development Corporation, before the purchase agreement can be finalized to move forward, it's required to come to the City Commission to look for confirmation of that sale, which we are recommending to you tonight. Mr. Wagner has indicated that his plans for that parcel would be to build a structure that would house an adult use microbusiness. I should point out that this is the last piece of land that the EDC owns that has development potential. All of the other pieces, assuming that this land is sold, are either detention ponds, parking lots, or have a cell tower on them. So I believe this is the last piece of land that the EDC will be recommending to you for sale to a private party. So we're recommending you confirm the sale of up to 3 acres at $14,500 per acre as recommended by the EDC.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Tolis?
Manager Ridley, I got one question on that. Is that offer for that property contingent on them getting a micro license for a business there, or is it just an outright offer?
That's a good question, Commissioner Tolis. The EDC did talk about that, about whether it was contingent on the micro business licensing, and determined not to make it contingent on that. So there is no contingency included with it. Although that he's indicated that's his intent, there's no requirement for that license to come through for him to make the purchase.
Okay, thank you. And I feel that's that's a good price at 14.5 an acre, because we sold the other piece of property in Grover Parkway for about that same amount. So I would support this.
Okay, we have a motion, and Commissioner Alsager.
I will second the motion.
Okay, and any discussion? I guess I would just like to say that at the meeting where the EDC did discuss this, I was the city commission representative, and I did ask about it being contingent, and the EDC board felt that that it wasn't necessary, and ultimately felt that even if this gentleman who's buying the land did not develop a micro business, that it would go on the tax rolls, and so from their perspective, they felt that this was still a good choice. So, without any other discussion, I think we can go to a roll call and a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Okay. Next on our agenda is appointments for city commissioners to city standing and special committees. I did send out earlier today to the commission my recommendations for those committees. And so I will read those real quickly. To the appointments committee, I appointed, I'm recommending Mary Elsager as the chair, Lori Gillis, and Amy Perschbacher. For the Central Michigan Center for Recovery, Education, and Wellness, I recommended Mary Elsager. For the Charter Committee, I recommended George Ronan as the chair, Lori Gillis, and Amy Perschbacher. For the Council of Governments, I recommended myself. For the Intergovernmental Liaison Committee, that is the mayor and vice mayor. For the International Relations and Sister City Council, I recommended Olivia Simon and myself as the alternate. For the Mount Pleasant Area Diversity Council, I recommended Olivia Simon. And for the Property Committee, I recommended myself as chair, Petro Tolis, and Mary Alsager. And so I think for those, we don't need a vote, correct?
That's correct. Under the charter, the mayor has authority to make those appointments to the standing committees.
Yep. So on to item number 17, which is to consider appointments of city commissioners to the applicable city boards and commissions. I will read off my recommendations. For the audit committee, I recommend Petro Tolis, George Ronan, and myself as the alternate. For the city CMU student liaison committee, I recommended Olivia Simon and Petro Tolis. For the Economic Development Corporation / Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, I recommended Lori Gillis and Mary Alsager as the alternate. For the Principal Shopping District Board, I recommended George Ronan. And for the Tax Increment Finance Authority Board, I recommended George Ronan. So I would ask for a motion from the commission. Commissioner Ronan?
Move to accept the nominations as presented.
And Commissioner Alsager?
I will second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right. I guess we can go into a roll call vote.
Okay. Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda is item number 18, which was removed from the consent calendar, which is to consider the appointment of city representative and MMDC representative to the Airport Joint Operations Board. The city representative recommended by staff is City Manager Nancy Ridley, and the MMDC representative is Jim McBride, who is the CEO of MMDC. Commissioner Elsager? Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy Ridley?
I was just going to comment, Mayor, we are also recommending that DPW Director Jason Moore be the city alternate in the event that I can't make one of the meetings. And the agreement that has been approved indicates that the appointments of individuals to serve on that board, as I mentioned at the last meeting, must be senior administrators or managers of each of the partner organizations. And the MMDC representative is approved by the City Commission, but it's based on recommendation from the MMDC board, are the only two additional comments that I would have made.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the correction. Commissioner Elsager. Mary, you're muted.
Thank you. I move to approve those appointments as mentioned.
And Commissioner Ronan?
I'll second Mary's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve those appointments. Any discussion from the board? Commissioner Gillis?
Yes, as I voiced my opinion at last City Commission meeting about the appointment of Jim McBride to our airport agreement, I am still in reservations about having someone pay $1,000 and get a vote on the important board of our airport and our community that pretty much pays for 90% of the airport. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Any other discussion from the board? Commissioner Tolis?
I'm also in agreement with Commissioner Gillis, and I already voiced my opinions at the last meeting that we had about Jim McBride being on there, and also not a city representative or past board member being on there. And I will not be supporting this.
Okay. I just have a question for Manager Ridley. The members of the Airport Operations Board that we have, those members are encouraged to attend this Joint Operations Board, correct?
The members of the current Airport Advisory Board that we have, yes, your motion last meeting indicated that their terms would continue, and we committed that they would be invited to each of the meetings of the Operations Board and would have an opportunity to comment on matters before any votes are taken.
I guess I would, I definitely understand the sentiment because a lot of the people that served on that board have a lot of experience and history with the airport. And I think that is very valuable information. And obviously they have a deep appreciation for that asset in our community. I do think there is, potentially a way that we can, retain that expertise and that passion in some way. And so I would, encourage the commission to think about different ways that we could do that. And as the year goes on and we see this Airport Operations Board really come to life, maybe find a way that we can get, two birds with one stone. So. And I guess I will add that I'm going to be supporting Jim McBride's appointment from the MMDC. I understand the sentiment that, you know, hey, you pay $1,000 and you're not a government unit that's elected by the people. I totally understand why that for some people could be troubling. But I want to point out that MMDC has been, I think, a force in our community, especially over the past year, that has really thrown a lifeline to a lot of businesses in our community and has been active in attracting economic development and retaining what we have. And so I do support the work of the MMDC, and I think the MMDC is bigger than any one personality. Commissioner Gillis, I see your hand is still up. Did you have a comment? Commissioner Gillis? Okay, sorry. I guess at this time, I think we can go into a roll call vote to approve the appointments as recommended.
Okay. Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
No.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
No.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Did I miss somebody on that one?
Nope, you had them all on there, 5-2.
Okay, correct. Yep, passes 5-2. I got my X in the wrong spot where I track them, and I was just like, uh-oh, who did I miss? So.
All right. Item number 21. Chris, did you get, I'm sorry, I should have probably asked this earlier. Did you get, I guess, the wording that Commissioner Tolis had for adding the agenda item?
What I wrote down on the minutes was Commissioner Tolis wants to add discussion around social media posts from Vice Mayor Perschbacher, seconded by Commissioner Gillis.
Okay. So right now we're at a discussion. And so our city attorney, Mike Homier, is with us. And so I guess for members of the public who may not be aware, I'll try to give a brief overview of what has transpired and why we're talking. And I intend to be very brief. Vice Mayor Perschbacher posted something on her Facebook page over the weekend last week. It was a Blue Lives Matter flag and had the blue stripe that was sort of falling off, come off the flag, and behind that was what appeared to be the German Nazi flag. And the caption was reading between the lines, I believe. That caught the attention of many community members and the media. And for those of us on this commission and City Hall employees, we've been hearing a lot from the community this past week. And so it's obviously caused a lot of concern. As mayor, I feel that this warrants discussion. And so I think we've referred some questions to Mike Homier, our city attorney, on what options the commission has at its disposal in terms of censoring, and that, an explanation of the ethics policy. And so really, I'd like to sort of turn it over to Mike, if you'd like. And
Mayor, could I jump in real quick before Mike starts talking, please? One of the things I think we've learned from this is that words and symbols really do matter. And I apologize for correcting you, but one of the things you indicated was it was a Blue Lives Matter flag. And what I've learned as I've had various conversations over the week about this is the proper terminology of it is really the thin blue line flag. And there's really a difference between those terms and what they mean and how they're used. So I apologize for correcting you, but I've learned this week that that's really a critical difference in some people's minds. And as I indicated at the beginning of the discussion, as we started to get a number of inquiries from the public, there were questions that I didn't know the answer to about what consequences are available for an elected official, because we've never dealt with that. I've never dealt with that as a city manager. So as I indicated, eventually I involved Mike in the process so that he could better educate us on what scope of legal authority the city commission really does or does not have in matters such as this. I do not believe that Mr. Homier has completed all of his legal research that he wanted to be able to do to be able to give you clear delineation on what your scope of legal authority is. But I know it's not good to speak for an attorney. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Mike and let him complete what he has or has not been able to do before you enter into your discussion.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. So obviously this is a contentious issue, and I want to first start out by saying what we are doing and what we are not doing. So we have been asked to look at legal issues related to the conduct of a commissioner. I don't really necessarily care what the conduct is, because it really doesn't affect, to some degree, what a legal opinion may or may not say. I'm not prepared to talk about the contents of that legal opinion, and even if I were, it is subject to the attorney-client privilege, and so the commission's going to have to decide the manner in which we discuss those legal issues. What I am not going to do, and what I should not do, is decide the issues for the commission in terms of its decision-making process of what may or may not be available to it in terms of the legality of any particular course of action. The decision-making is the commission's and the commission's alone. It is not my role, nor do I intend to recommend any particular course of action. Rather, as Manager Ridley pointed out, my job is to advise you on the scope of your legal authority and any of those avenues or pathways that may be available to the commission, some of which I think may be available, some of which may not be available. And so that will be the defining scope of the memorandum, not necessarily the particular conduct and whether any particular person or people find it, offensive in that respect. That is not what my role is as your city attorney in this. It's to define your legal scope of authority. And because we're dealing with inherently elected officials, First Amendment implications, as well as your ordinance and state law, sometimes that takes a while to sort through all of those issues. We were alerted to this, I believe, on Thursday, and so we really have had limited time to sort of digest those issues. Some of the case law that may be applicable dates back to the early 1900s, and so you've got to track it down, because any advice that we do give the commission, we want to ensure is that there's a proper legal foundation for that advice. So we're working through those issues. I expect we're going to finish those in the next day or two, and then the commission can decide the manner in which it wants to discuss those legal issues.
Thank you, Mike. I think it makes real sense. Are there any questions for Mike, or as much as he could provide at this moment, I suppose? Commissioner Elsager?
This isn't actually a question for Mike. It's more to help explain something that Nancy read earlier when she was reading a second letter from a a resident, and she was referring to, she had been communicating with a commissioner, and I was the one she was communicating with, that she had emailed me and I had responded to her. And then her response to me was included in the letter or in the note to Nancy. But basically my comment was that I believe in forgiveness and second chances. So that's where those terms came out in that email that Nancy read. Thank you.
Commissioner Toles.
I just want to make a couple quick comments. At the City Commission meeting on January 11th, during public comment, I warned the city commissioners about using the commission as a political platform. The mayor made comments. Amy Perschbacher, made comments. Mary Halsinger made comments regarding the coup at the Capitol and this and that. Basically, we're here to conduct city business. This is not a political platform, and this is what happens when these things occur. And I feel, this is a permanent stain, on all our law enforcement. I mean, this has just disrupted the city and the police department. I can respect, the comments that we had during the public comment, but the only person knows what she meant is Commissioner Perschbacher on this post. She's the only one that knows. Everybody's it wasn't interpreted right. Well, you could have brought it up at the January 11th meeting, but that was never brought up. You just brought up there was a coup and a few other things, and that's it. And that's what happens when we play politics. I think, there's an ethic problem here, is my opinion, on it under 30.16, under A and E. And I feel this, as I'm looking at the header when this was posted on there, and it says Amy Perschbacher, City of Mount Pleasant, government official. I mean, how can you separate it? This is not a private post, people. This went out to the public. It went all over the airwave. It's in the newspapers. It's on TV. And I'm thinking there's an ethics problem here. Under 3, representation. Under A, an official shall not represent his or her personal views on those of the city or the body on which the official serves. That's A. And E is, an official shall not interfere with the city's administrative functions or the duties of city staff, or shall not impair the city's ability to implement policy decisions made by any official body. Well, we have problems right here on the city commission now. The city has problems. The city police department has problems. And I think we need to move this forward, get an opinion from Mr. Homier, and figure out what we're going to do. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple comments. Last Monday, Vice Mayor Perschbacher made a post on her public Facebook that in no way reflects the views of the City Commission. Her post, in my opinion, was impulsive, irresponsible, and lacked judgment. It was offensive to our men and women of public safety that protect our society with their lives. It was offensive to our community members who saw this post as an attack on our public protectors in blue. It has become a scar on our community and on the face of our city commission on a national level. In the future, I would hope Ms. Perschbacher would realize that as a public official, her actions and reactions have consequences for all of us, no matter what her intention. This has been a difficult time for the community and for myself, and our city manager has fielded many telephone calls along with our public relations director and our public safety director. And I am very disappointed that at the beginning of a new political landscape, this is an issue we have to address. I hope that the City Commission will come to some resolve of some consequences for her action. But this November, Amy Perschbacher will be up for re-election. She is not, because this is the last year of her term, she cannot be recalled by our community members. So I would hope that residents use that opportunity to make their voices heard. Thank you.
Commissioner Ronan?
Yeah, I don't think there's any surprise that I'm on the other side of this. I think Amy's an elected official. I think she's representing citizens of Mount Pleasant. I've heard lots of comments from people in Mount Pleasant who understood what she was doing. She's in precinct 7, which is close to the university. I've talked to a lot of university people who knew what she was doing, who understood the post as it was presented. She's not the only way. She didn't develop the post. She didn't have a hand in its design or something. She was just conveying the hypocrisy associated with what took place on the Capitol on the 6th. I think lots of people understood that. I don't view it as an ethical issue. I view it as probably a First Amendment issue. The attorneys I've talked to have suggested that. I think the way it was dealt with is problematic. So we should look at policies for dealing with things like this. I think it was very poorly handled, and I'm disappointed by that. I think that's what caused a lot of this vituperousness. But, we can have that conversation.
I guess at this time, I'd like to share some thoughts of my own. I think that the Facebook post by Amy Perschbacher, the vice mayor, depicting the thin blue line flag with the falling stripe, at the end of the day has become a divisive post in our community, and obviously amongst the commission. It's caused a lot of stress amongst us, amongst City Hall, amongst our community. And I think at the end of the day, it does reflect poorly. The city and the employees, including our 29 full-time police officers, this doesn't help them, I think, do their job. And I respect the First Amendment rights of any city commissioner to have their views and to have their say on important issues of the day. But I think the execution here is a big issue. I think as a city commissioner, I believe your actions at City Hall and in private life do matter. As an elected official, you choose to represent not only the voters who supported you, but the entire community that you represent. Commissioners are trusted to speak on behalf of the city, so their words carry an authority that has been entrusted to them by the people. With that great power comes great responsibility. I think for this reason, when Amy's explanation of the message she intended behind her post, I come to one conclusion after weighing various points of view and fielding dozens of phone calls and emails this week, and some who I've yet to respond to because of the just the volume that has happened this week. If her intention to make commentary on the events of the January 6th, if that was her intention, that message attempt, I think, failed in general. It is obvious from the Facebook or from the feedback from the community that that the commission must assume that Amy's post was seen as an attack on law enforcement, intended or not, by many in our community. As the vice mayor or any commissioner must assume, their words and actions reflect and impact those associated most closely with the city of Mount Pleasant, including our employees. The city of Mount Pleasant has a police department that is professional, supportive of its community, including this past summer in the Black Lives Matter protests. They train for de-escalation tactics and recognize implicit bias in their training. Most recently, our department is proving the way they serve our community by partnering with RISE to serve victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. And many in the public have asked, where do we go from here? To this, we're having this discussion. The commission has referred some questions to our lawyer. Some have asked for me to remove Amy Perschbacher from the commission and said that it'd be unacceptable if I didn't. I say, what a scary world if it would be if politicians could remove those they disagree with. Obviously, no one on this commission has the power to remove Amy, and we shouldn't. The commission down the road can vote to censor the vice mayor, which is a public reprimand, noting the commission's disapproval of the vice mayor's actions. That is essentially the end of our toolbox and what we have potentially to move forward. I wait to hear legal interpretations from our city attorney. I haven't made a decision either way, but I certainly feel that as frustrating as this week has been, I'd like to think that the vice mayor, beyond an explanation, do more to take responsibility for her poor communication. And together, I think the community could move on together. Commissioner Ronan, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I mean, I also support our local police. I don't think that was the target of the communication. I think they're doing a wonderful job. I marched in the Black Lives Matter thing. I think they did an absolutely terrific job and support it. Michigan has 27 hate groups identified by the 7 Poverty and Law Center. What are the police doing to sort of look at those hate groups? Is that a role for the police to play? What are we doing in the state of Michigan with that? We just had a governor that was plotted to be kidnapped. Are the police involved in looking into those things? Is that part of what we should be doing? I mean, how do these things train? So I think it's an opportunity to open things for a discussion, right? I think it's an opportunity to sort of rethink things about what law enforcement is doing, to be honest. So I think there's lots of ways in which we can look at this and say, hey, what can we learn from it? What can we do? But I don't see it as being directly, I don't see the post as being directly pointed toward the local police, and I think a read of it wouldn't suggest that. But you know, my heart goes out to them, and I feel bad if and I guess that was their interpretation. I can tell you, the thin blue line flag also isn't. I mean, there are high schools that don't display it anymore because of the mixed message it conveys, right? I mean, if you fact check the meaning of the thin blue line flag, what you find is that there's Reuters or any of the other places that do fact checking, it doesn't mean necessarily what people are suggesting it means, at least not in the current context. So I mean, I think there's, you know, we're taking the symbolism as though it's being interpreted your way, and that's why, and I just don't, I mean, we can have these conversations, but I think there are other ways to use this to learn from it. And I think it's unfortunate that it happened. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not, you know, I mean, there are probably other ways to raise these issues, but I don't think it's as traumatic as people are making it.
Commissioner Elsager.
Thank you. One thing that I hadn't really thought of before tonight and hearing comments kind of from a variety of voices is I have a personal Facebook page and I have a city commission Facebook page. And I put things on my personal Facebook page that I would never put on the city commission Facebook page. And I'm glad that as I've learned more tonight that Amy's post was on her personal page, and that is more of a protected speech. Thank you.
Commissioner Tolis.
I just wanted to make one more quick point. In reviewing the amount of city complaints that the city police department, and I think it was somewhere around 8,700 that they responded to last year, we had 4 written complaints. And out of the 4 written complaints, nothing was race related. We do not have a problem here in Mount Pleasant. So why try to create one? The police do an excellent job. Let's just give them credit for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Roden, is your hand up?
I apologize, I've got to take it down.
That's
I mean,
fine.
I can talk more.
All right. We don't have any hands up. Manager
Mayor?
Ridley?
Yeah, could I make a couple comments, please?
Sure.
As I told all of you, I spent a good part of last week responding to requests and inquiries related to this issue. And there was one question that repeatedly came up that I could answer. And the question, kind of like what you referred to, Mayor, is why don't you as the city manager fire the vice mayor? And I got to tell you, I felt like I was teaching government sometimes in some of those conversations, because we had discussions about the difference between elected officials and the difference between employees. But in those conversations, none of them were short conversations. And where they often went were that I believe that both elected officials and employees have a responsibility to represent the city in all that we do. It's one of the things we sign up for, either when we take a job as an employee, or as I've said to you, as I've done your new commissioner orientations, it's kind of what you sign up for when you're elected, that you're always viewed as the city. So I believe our standards are similar between employees and elected officials. But there is a difference in consequences when someone in either one of those groups does something that many people believe is detrimental to the city. In an employer-employee relationship, we have a number of options available to us if we believe an employee has done something, even on their own time, that damages their ability to do their job, or reflects poorly on the city, or hurts the city's reputation. We have a number of options available to us, many of the social media comments suggested about discipline or termination or firing. Luckily, we haven't had to do that in the city at this point, but social media is a beast. And I would guess that someday, while I'm still city manager, there will come a time where an employee makes an inappropriate post, and I will have to deal with that. And we will evaluate the reputation of the city. We will evaluate what was posted, how it was interpreted by numerous people, because this is an example where one post was interpreted vastly different depending on the lens through which you see it. And as an employer, I'm going to have to deal with that at some point. As an elected official, you do represent the city, but the consequences for your actions are different. As one of you said, the consequences are at the ballot box, typically, for an elected official, and that's where it is typically dealt with. So for individuals in our community to think that either me as the city manager or Will as the mayor can unilaterally remove an elected official from office, as Will said, is a scary thought. That's not the country we live in. But as Mr. Homier's research will show you, there are options that the commission has if they feel an elected official has done something that hurt the reputation of the city. And until you know what those options are, it's hard for you to make decisions about what you are or are not willing to do. So I share that with you because I think the people we've heard from sometimes don't understand the differences between those two bodies of employees that always represent the city. And so I think it's important publicly to make that distinction. I think it's also, one of the lessons learned from this thing is that, as I mentioned, one item, whether it's words or a symbol, can be interpreted different ways depending on the lens through which you see it. And I think as leaders in our community, whether as elected officials or as employees, we have a responsibility to think through the different lenses that people may see things and understand when their lens is different than ours. And the vast majority of people that called my office this week did see that as an attack on law enforcement and were worried about the reputation of our city. There were some people who saw it through the other lens about the Capitol, the attack on the Capitol. I didn't hear from as many of those people. But one of the questions that I repeatedly got that I couldn't answer, and I ask you to think about before you get to the point where you have to make a decision, is even though the consequences for employees and elected officials are different by law, if an employee made a post that could be interpreted different ways through different lenses, I would guess that I would get phone calls from you, just like I got phone calls on this one. But some of your phone calls, I think, would be asking me what I was going to do about that. And generally, I don't talk about how we handle personnel matters. But the part I couldn't answer for the people who called my office this week is, if an employee gave an explanation that said, that isn't how I intended it, this was the context I meant it in, and it's being interpreted incorrectly, my context was different, I wonder how accepting you as a board would be of that explanation if it was an employee that did that. So I guess I'm asking you to think about that and let me know if that explanation would be accepting to you if it was an employee that did such a thing. And I say all of that, again, recognizing the consequences are different, but the impact is the same. Both an elected official and an employee can impact the reputation of our city. So as your city manager, I ask you to consider that as you think about this over the ensuing weeks. And I'm sorry, I probably went further than I should have, but I felt that's an important perspective for you to consider.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Roden?
I think it's safe to say that political speech is one of the most heavily protected First Amendment rights. So we could, I'm looking forward to that conversation at some point. But, you know, let me give you, I present stuff all over the world. So I have lots of friends. I have a Facebook following, 1,000 something of people. You follow what I'm saying? I post stuff that has to do with all sorts of people all over the place. I mean, I don't just simply limit it. I mean, granted, I've now taken any representation, any information that I'm living in Mount Pleasant or associated with Mount Pleasant off there because I don't want to be associated here. But, you know, I mean, it's not just the little community. So when things like this happen, I think you have to say, you have a conversation. You follow, say, if you're getting phone calls, you have a conversation, you have the person in, you talk to them, you treat them like a colleague. Instead of forming a posse where you have all these people doing all these things, saying, sending text messages saying, "Oh, the commissioner has to resign right now," or I mean, it's just not how people treat other people. It's not how colleagues treat each other. So I'm highly disappointed at this point. I mean, I think it was just very poorly handled. I don't know if I'm going to eventually think of a vote of no confidence or something, but I mean, it was just very poorly handled. I don't know what to tell you. And I think that exacerbated it. And some of the people in the city, when they were talking to other people, talk about how mad the city is and how they're going to get at, you know, these are employees of the city talking about a commissioner that way. I mean, part of what caused it is the reaction to it and how it was handled. I don't know what to say, but I've said enough, I guess.
Certainly there is a lot to talk about when it comes down to this issue. And I think given that there's no hands up at this time, I think the most appropriate thing we can do as a commission is, wait to see what Mike's opinions are and move on from there. So unless there's any objection or more comment to add, I think we've all had an opportunity to speak, and if you'd like to add a last comment before we move on tonight. All right. All right. I think we're at announcements and new business for the commission. Any announcements for the greater good today? Commissioner Toles.
I'd like to make one last statement for the night. I received numerous phone calls and emails, and I actually took offense to one email that I received that said all commissioners are the same. You're all the same. I'm not the same. And as a city commissioner, I support all our men and women in uniform, from the U.S. military to our local officers who work to maintain a safe community. I feel that my record will back this support. I condemn the violence that took place in our national capital on January 6th. I also condemn the derogatory actions taken by Vice Mayor Perschbacher in a Facebook post on January 18th. I just want to get this clear out to the citizens, and I'm doing what I can, and we're just going to have to wait on a legal opinion to see what our authority is to move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ronan. George, we can't hear you, buddy.
My father fought in World War II. I was in the military during the Vietnam era. I've certainly done what I could to support democracy and defend the Constitution. And I just think free speech is important. And I think when that starts to become limited, it worries me terribly. Yeah. That's all.
Okay. I think on a lighter note, I just want to remind the public that in the winter we have, and not only in the winter, but during this pandemic, there is significant need in our community for those who don't have enough. And so if you can spare donations to our food banks, the Clothing Inc., or maybe our homeless shelter, ICRH, they are seeing record-breaking need in this year and last. So if you have the ability to help out, I would appreciate it. They would appreciate it. Also, in this year, we've instituted new rules for parking on streets during snow emergencies. And Manager, really, would you like, if you could just remind the public about our snow emergency policy?
Yes, we still have no parking on city streets in the downtown area from 4 to 6 a.m. every day. But throughout the rest of the city, it is possible to park on the city streets all of the time, even in the nighttime hours, unless we declare a snow emergency. And if the snow emergency is declared, then all of the cars have to be removed from the street parking. But we use social media, our website, our hotline, and we will do press releases in those events when we do declare a snow emergency. Knock on wood, we have not had to do that yet this year. The snowplow team has been able to clear the roads, and the number of cars parked have not been significant enough to create problems with doing that. So we haven't had to do it, but I understand we're expecting snow this evening. So depending on how much there is, there's always that potential. But we have committed that we will give notice when a snow emergency is declared. It's not like we're going to declare it in the middle of the night and expect people to get up in the middle of the night and move their cars. We will give notice before we declare that so that people have adequate opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. And also, the governor has released new guidelines for the COVID-19 pandemic, and some of our restaurants will be opening up this coming week at limited capacity and limited hours. And I'd just like to remind the public that our local restaurants do need your support, but also to remain safe. Wear your mask and practice social distancing as much as possible. And if you can, sign up for your vaccine. So that's all I have for tonight. Commissioner Alsager.
I would like to just lift up our local soup kitchen. We get an update. I don't know if it's every Monday or every other Monday, but I think Sarah Adkins in the group has done a real remarkable job of transforming their model of service to a contact-free delivery and still being able to help feed those who need it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and to do it in a very safe manner. I just wanted to give my appreciation.
All right, I don't see any other hands up. Going once, going twice. Okay. At this time, I will open up public comment on agenda and non-agenda items for the public, and it will go as it was earlier. You will state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission. If you're joining us by Zoom, you can hit the participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then on the right-hand side, there should be a raise hand button that you can click. If you're joining us by phone, you can hit *9 on your phone, and I can recognize you for public comment. While we wait, Manager Ridley, were there any comments submitted on agenda or non-agenda items by the public?
Just a moment, I'll have to check. I have to get to a different screen.
Sure.
No, we've had no additional comments submitted.
Okay. I'm not seeing any hands up in our attendees, and so at this time I will close the public comment section, and we don't have a work session scheduled for this evening, and so at 8:52 I will adjourn this meeting. Good night, everybody.
Good evening.